Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum students. This is Tarik. Today we will learn about the descriptive statistical numerical measure variance, which is used to measure the variation in the data items of the data set about the mean value. So variance means variation or variability. And how we can define variance or what is variance actually. So variance is the difference between each data item of the data set and the mean value of the data set. Simply variance means we can compute variation of each data item by simply subtracting the mean value of the data set from each data item of the data set. So variance, we will mathematically compute variance of each data item. We will compute. How we will compute? Simply, this is the difference between each data item of the data set and the mean value of the data set. Or simply variance is equal to each data item of the data set minus mean value of the data set. So this is very clear in here that variance is the difference of each data item of the data set and the mean value of the data set. Or variance is each data item of the data set minus mean value of the data set. And this is the formula xi minus mean value of the data set, where xi is ith data item. This is also called deviations of the data items about the mean value of the data set. Means this variance is simply the difference between the data item of the data set and the mean value of the data set. Each data item of the data set and the mean value. The difference of each data item and the mean value of the data set is variance. And how we can compute? We will subtract mean value of the data set from each data item simply. This variance is also called deviation, variability about the mean of the data set. So I'm again repeating, variance is simply the difference between each data item of the data set and the mean value of the data set. And this variance is also called deviations of the data items about the mean value of the data set. And now this is mathematical formulation of the data of the variance of the data set xi, where xi represent every data item of the set minus mean value of the data set. This is formulation of the variance. Note, if data is a sample data, then variance we will calculate as given xi minus x bar, where x bar is the mean value of the data set. X bar is the symbol for the mean value of the data set, for the arithmetic mean, for the average value. We studied this in the previous lessons. So this is simply called variance. Dear students, I'm again repeating that we define that variance is the difference between each data item of the data set and the mean value of the data set. So this is very clear from this mathematical notation that xi minus x bar. Xi represent each data item of the data set and x bar represent the mean value of the data set. So the difference of each data item and the mean value of the data set is called variance or standard deviation of the data set. Xi is the ith data item, mean any data item of the data set. X bar is the mean value of the sample data. If the data is population data, then variance is as given xi minus mu, where xi is each data item of the data set and mu is the mean value of the population. We studied this in the previous lessons. So I'm again repeating, variance is a statistical measure which estimate variability in the data items of the data set about the mean value. And what is variance? Variance is also called deviations of the data item about the mean value, and how we can mathematically calculate using this formula. This is simply the difference between the data item and the mean value of the data set. So difference of each data item and the mean value, xi minus mean value of the data set. This is variance, which is also called deviation. This is sample variance, xi minus x bar, the difference of each data item and mean value of the data set, or each data item minus mean value of the data set will give us sample variance, where x bar is the mean value of the sample data. And again, if the data is population, so then this is the variance formulation, xi minus mu, where xi is each data item minus mu is the average value of the population. Let me clarify the concept of variance by putting one general example. اوکی ما ایگا پارا دوباره در زبان دری هم واضح میکنیم. variance چی است؟ variance वो statistical tool است که با کمک variance یا standard deviation statistician variability مگر میکنه، اندازه میکنه. variability چی؟ variation data items از اوسط value data set که data items در data set که است او از اوسط value data set چقدر تفاوت داره، چقدر increase شده میره یا چقدر decrease شده میره. یعنی از mean value data items چقدر به طرف راست اضافه شده میره، چقدر به طرف چپ کم شده میره. خب variance چطور تعریف میشه؟ variance چطور کلکولیت میشه؟ چطور فارمولیت میشه؟ و فرموله اینجا واضح هست. xi minus mean value of the data set, or this is variance xi minus x bar. ये बच्ची माना, ये बई माना कि variance क्या है वो फर्क در مابین هر دیتا آیتم دیتا ست او اوسط ولیو دیتا ست است که از هر ولیو دیتا ست باید اوسط ولیو دیتا ست منفی شود، خود به خود دیوییشن انحراف یا ویرینس معلوم میشه. ما دوباره ریپیت میکنیم که variance چی است؟ variance is the difference of each data item of the data set and the mean value. یعنی variance چطور معلوم، چطور استیمیت میشه؟ وقتی که از هر دیتا آیتم که در دیتا ست قرار داره، از هر دیتا آیتم اوسط ولیو دیتا ست منفی شود، خود به خود variance او standard deviation یا deviation کلکولیت میشه. ما دوباره میگم یہ سامپل ویرینس فارمولا است. اینجا از دیتا آیتم آی که فعلا کدام مشخص ولیو نداره، ایکس آی نشان به هر دیتا آیتم میده که در دیتا ست قرار داره. ایکس آی یک دیتا آیتم است، از او ما اوسط ولیو دیتا ست را منفی میکنیم که او ویرینس، او ویریبیلیتی، او ویریشن، او ڈسپرشن معلوم شود कि वो डेटा आइटम कद از मीन वैल्यू. خب ये वेरिएंस शुड कि ما از हर डेटा आइटम औसत वैल्यू باید منفی کنیم او वेरिएशन باید معلوم کنیم. ये ما एक एग्जांपल گرفتیم. sample data set is as given x1 x2 x3 تا xn. ये डेटा सेट इन नंबर ऑफ डेटा आइटम्स داره. اینجا बजाय आई मा x1 नविष्टा करें, ये बई माना कि ये अव्वल डेटा आइटम डेटा सेट है. बजाय ई आई के मा इन जद्दू नविष्टा करें, ये बई माना कि ये दोम डेटा आइटम डेटा सेट है. बजाय आई के मा इन जैसे नविष्टा करें, ये बई माना कि ये सेम डेटा आइटम डेटा सेट है. वो ये एक डेटा सेट है कि वो इन नंबर ऑफ डेटा आइटम्स दारा. आले अगर मा वेरियंस और स्टैंडर्ड डिविएशन बाय सेट कैलकुलेट میکنیم که هر دیتا آیتم از اوسط ولیو چقدر تفاوت داره او با این فرمول کلکولیت میشه. variance or deviation about the mean value is یا r. ما اونجا تعریف کردیم که variance چی است که باید از هر دیتا آیتم اوسط ولیو منفی شود. اینجا اوسط ولیو دیتا ست x بار است. جرنلی یک علامه نوشته کردیم. یه علامه ولیو اوسط دیتا ست است x بار. ما x بار را از اول دیتا آیتم منفی میکنیم خود به خود وریانس معلوم میشه. خب x1 اول دیتا آیتم است، از او ما اوسط ولیو دیتا ست را منفی میکنیم. یه ما را وریانس یا وریبیلیتی یا وریشن about the mean value میده، تفاوت میده. حالا ما از دوم دیتا آیتم وہ اوسط ولیو دوباره منفی کنیم، یه وریانس دوم میده x2 minus x bar. x3 minus x bar سیوم وریانس میده. اینطور ما از هر دیتا آیتم اوسط ولیو دیتا ست را منفی میکنیم و اینطور تعریف شد که وریانس چی است؟ وریانس فرق در مابین هر دیتا آیتم او اوسط ولیو دیتا ست است که از هر دیتا آیتم باید اوسط ولیو دیتا ست منفی شود که وریشن معلوم شود از اوسط ولیو. I'm again repeating in English. For example, this is the sample data set. The data set carry in number of data items x1, x2, x3, x4 up to xn. So this data set carry in number of data items where x1 is the first data item, x2 is the second, x3 is the third, and so on and so on. Now variance, we define that variance is the difference between each data item and mean value of the data set. R, variance is the difference of the data item and mean value of the data set. Or you can say variance means data item minus mean value of the data set. So this is your first data item x1. Variance is what? When we subtract from x1 mean value of the data set. So this will give us first variance about the mean value. Now I'm again subtracting mean value x bar of the data set from the second data item. So x2 minus x bar will give us second variance. And now I'm again subtracting mean value x bar from the third data item. So x3 minus x bar and so on and so on. So these are all the different variances of the data set. Means variation of the data items about the mean values. As we have n number of deviations or variances, to interpret the data we need one value of the deviation. So we will compute the average deviation. To find the average deviation by adding together all the deviations, the deviations cancel each other because deviations carry both positive and negative values. We cannot find average deviation. To avoid this problem, we will square all the deviation to eliminate the negative sign and then compute the average deviation. If the data is a sample data, then sample variance is the average of the squared deviations about the mean value. And this is sample variance formula, sigma square, where sigma is a symbol for the sample variance. Sigma square is equal to summation xi minus x bar whole raised to the power 2 divided by n minus 1. This is the variance formula that we will use to measure variability or variation or dispersion about the mean value of the data set. Let me elaborate again what does this theories mean. What does this theory mean that I write in here? Let me take you back to the variances. For this data set, I find n number of variances. So using n different variances, using n different deviations, I cannot interpret the data. I cannot summarize the data because we have n number of different deviations about the mean value. So to interpret the data, to summarize the data, to make the data meaningful, to pass the decision about the data, I need one deviation value. I need one variance value. That is why I will find the average value of the variance. I will find the average deviation of the given number of deviations. So I'm again repeating, to interpret the data, I need one value of the deviation. So when I need one value, how I can find? By taking the average of the deviations. By taking the average of the deviation, I can measure one value for the variance or for the deviation to interpret the data. But when I am finding the average value of the deviation, I am going to add together all the variances. But when I am adding them, they cancel each other, because in variances some values are positive and some values are negatives. Both positive and negative values cancel each other, so I cannot compute the average deviation. I cannot compute the one average value of the deviation. I cannot calculate the one value for the in number of deviations. I cannot compute the one average value of the deviations. So what to do? How to solve this problem? How to avoid this cancellation of positive and negative deviation? I will square all the deviation. When I will square the deviation, I will eliminate the negative signs. And when I square the deviation, I enlarge the deviation. I make big in size the variances or the deviations. And now this is very clear from this formula. Sample variance formula, sigma square is equal to summation xi minus x bar whole square. So I am adding together the square deviation, students. Keep in mind, this is not original measurement unit. I am squaring the deviation. Why? Because there is a problem that positive deviation cancel out the negative deviations, and we cannot compute the average value for the deviation. So to avoid this problem, I squared all the deviation, and now I am dividing the summation xi minus x bar whole square by n minus 1. This formula we will use to measure the variability about the mean value. Now ما ایره دوباره در زبان دری هم واضح میکنیم که اینجا ما دیتا سیت داریم. دیتا سیت این نمبر of data items داره و ما اوسط ویلیو دیتا سیت هم کشیدیم که او x بار است. آلی variance یا deviation چطور معلوم میشه؟ ما باید اوسط ویلیو x بار را از هر دیتا ایتم جدا جدا منفی کنیم که جدا جدا ویریانس یا دیویشن معلوم شود. خب ما اول اوسط ویلیو x بار را از اول دیتا ایتم منفی کردیم x1 مینس x بار. خب ما اول ویریانس یا دیویشن معلوم شد. پس ما x بار را از دوم دیتا ایتم منفی کردیم x2 منفی x بار به ما دوم ویریانس میتا and so on. آلی اینجا ما خو از یک زیاد دیویشنز کشیدیم، از یک زیاد variances میر کردیم، define کردیم. خو این چطور دیتا را انترپریت میکنه؟ این خو نمیتونه که دیتا را انترپریت کنه یا سمرایز کنه. خو ما باید چی کنیم؟ ما مجبور هستیم که از کلگی variances یا از کلگی deviations ما یک اوسط deviation معلوم کنیم، اوسط ولیو deviation معلوم کنیم. خو اوسط خو شما خواندید چطور معلوم میشه؟ وقتی ما کلگی ولیوها را جمع کنیم او به تعداد ولیوها تقسیم کنیم، خود به خود اوسط معلوم میشه. خو اینجا ما این نمبر of deviations داریم، یہ چند deviation این نمبر of variances یا این نمبر of deviations داریم. ما مجبور هستیم که کلگی را جمع کنیم، او که جمع میشه پس به تعداد تقسیم میکنیم او اوسط deviation معلوم میشه. خو وقتی که ما یہ ویریانسز کی کشیدیم، یہ ڈیویشنز کی کشیدیم، ما ایرا کی جمع نہیں کنیم کہ باید اوسط معلوم کنیم. یہ کینسل کده میرا یک ویریانس دیگه ویریانس یک ڈیویشن دیگه ڈیویشن را کینسل میکنه او وقتی که جمع میکنیم ریزلت صفر میده. خو یہ مشکل شد ما چطور باید اوسط کلکولیٹ کنیم، چطور باید اوسط ڈیویشن کلکولیٹ کنیم. وہ خو ایڈ کده نمیره، ایڈ شده نمیره. چرا؟ که یک ویریانس اگر مثبت است خود دوم ویریانس منفی است به او اندازه، سوم اگر مثبت است خود چهارم به او اندازه منفی است. خود وقتی که جمع شود مثبت و منفی یا هر دویش कैंसिल कदा मेरा बई वजह माना में तानिम के औसत डिविएशन कैलकुलेट करें तो ये मुश्किल बात चतुर रखा करें मा बाय ये डिविएशंस ये वेरिएंसेस है कि मा खुद कैलकुलेट करें इधर बाय स्क्वायर करें मुरब्बा हमेशा वो मनफी अलामा बमुस्बत चेंज मेशा पस मा कुल की डिविएशन दर जमने कुनिम अब बतदाद तकसीम कुनिम कि औसत डिविएशन बाय कैलकुलेट शो आले मा इरा बकमा की एक एग्जांपल वाज़ेह में कुनिम फॉर एग्जांपल compute the sample variance about the mean value of the cost per kg of the 5 different purchases. I'm again repeating, calculate the sample variance for the given data about the cost per kg of the 5 different raw materials. Means we have to find the variability about the mean value of the cost per kg of the 5 different purchases. So compute the sample variance for the cost per kg of the 5 different purchases. So these are the first column, the table represent data, number of purchases, first column 5 purchases, cost per kg. We use the symbol XI for that. These are data items. Yani the company is purchasing 5 different raw materials and the prices of the 5 different raw materials are given in the column 2 as a cost per kg. So XI represent the symbol for the 5 different raw materials. This is 3. This is the cost per kg of first raw material, 2, cost per kg of second raw material, 4, 1 and 5. These are all the data items, the prices of the 5 different raw materials per kg. So in the very first step we have to find the mean value because to compute the variance we have to find, because variance is the difference of the each data item of the data set and the mean value of the data set. So data items are given but mean value is not given. So we have to find the mean value. How we can find the mean value? Summation xi, by adding together all these data items. When we add them together we will divide by the number of data items. So 325 plus 49 plus 110 plus 515. I add together the values of the data items and now I will divide by the number of the data items. So how many number of the data items? 5 number. So 15 divided by 5, we calculate the mean value simple. We calculate the sample mean, that is $3. Means average cost per kg of the 5 different materials is $3. So we compute the mean value of the data items 3, 3, 3, 3 and 3. Now deviations about the mean. So deviation we define, variance we define. This is the difference between the each data item and the mean value. So this is each data item and this is minus mean value. So this is the difference between the data item and the mean value of the data set. So data item is 3 and mean value is also 3. So the difference is what? 3 minus 3 is equal to 0. This is deviation about the mean. So its mean, this data item is equal to the mean. It's not deviating. There is no variation about the mean in first data item. First data item is not varying from the mean value. This is also 3, mean value is 3 and data item is also 3. Now variance is the difference of each data item and the mean value. So data item is 2 and minus mean value is 3. So we find variance, variation of the second data item about the mean value 3, which is minus 1. So 2 minus 3 minus 1. In this way we will compute variances or deviations of the data items about the mean value. So the third data item 4 minus mean value 3, 4 minus 3 is equal to 1. Fourth data item is 1 and mean value is 3, 1 minus 3 is equal to minus 2. Fifth data item is 3, 5, fifth data item is 5 and mean value is 3. So 5 minus 3 is equal to 2. So 0 deviation. First data item represent no deviations above the mean value. Second data item represent one value deviation to the left of mean because 2 is less than 3. And this third data item represent one value deviation to the right of 3 because 4 is the data item. This is one value to the right of the mean value 3. And minus 2 represent 2 deviation and plus 2 represent 2 deviation. Now these are the different number of deviations. These are the 5 different deviations or 5 different variances. So we cannot interpret the data using these 5 number of variances or 5 different deviations. So what to do? How to interpret the data? We have to find the average deviation of all these 5 deviations. We have to calculate the mean value of the deviation. How we can compute mean? By adding together the data items and divided by the number of the data items. But there is a problem. When I'm computing the average deviation and I'm adding together the value, all these values cancel each other. Minus 1 plus 1, 0. Minus 2 plus 2, 0. And when we add together the deviations, when we add together the variances, we find 0. And in this way, we cannot find the average value of the deviation to interpret the data. So what to do? We have to avoid this problem because one sign is negative, other sign is positive in the same amount. Minus 1 plus 1 cancel each other. One sign is negative, other is positive in the same amount. Minus 2 plus 2 cancel each other. So what to do? How we can find the mean value of the deviation? We have to square all these deviations. We will square the deviation. By the murabbai deviation bigrim. So when I am squaring, now square of the 0 is 0, square of the minus 1 is 1, square of the 1 is 1, square of the minus 2 is 4, and square of the 2 is 4. So we eliminate the negative sign. And now if I am adding together, so all the data items, all the variances are positive and we can add them together. So while we squared the deviation to eliminate the negative sign to avoid the problem of cancellation of the data items. So that is why we squared, and when we add them together we find 10. Dear student, I am closing the lecture on this point because the length of the video is extending, increasing, and then this create problem in uploading. That is why I will start repeat from this point in the next video recording in the next lecture. So let me stop lecture because the time is extending.